Joining me now, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat from New York. Congressman, one of the reasons I love talking to you is you're relatively new to Capitol Hill, and so you retain a little bit of an outsider's view on it.
Yes, I do.
What is the Keystone fight about from where you stand operating Capitol Hill as you do?
Well, I think you did a great job of laying out the stakes, but as far as I'm concerned, in terms of climate change, it is a reality that we have to address. And we have to address the reality that is closely connected to the fact that big money interests do stand behind Keystone Pipeline as well as this entire debate. And on first glance, some who deny climate change may deny it in ways that some of us may think is simply irrational based on the mountain of scientific evidence.
Right.
And some have been accused of being the descendants of the same group of people who once believed that the earth was flat. But that is not really the reality behind the concerted effort connected to things like Keystone. It's the economics of the situation and the fact that if we move in a different direction, if we try to meaningfully reduce our carbon footprint and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, that there's economic interest that will suffer as a result, and that's essentially what this fight is all about.
And is that the reason? I'm amazed by how profile this fight is. I mean, it was one thing when a bunch of climate activists decided to pick this battle, right? But now you have the news this week. They're going to further delay final decision on Keystone, largely due to this court case in Nebraska. And immediately, every Republican, you got John Boehner at Cantor, and Karl Rove is going on Fox. I mean, it is a huge central thing. And what you're saying is the money on the line is the reason it's a big issue.
The money on the line is absolutely the reason it's a big issue, but I think there are other things that have to be considered. The communities that I represent in Brooklyn and Queens were hit hard by Superstorm Sandy, a storm that was an extreme weather event, the type of which have become increasingly more frequent as a direct result of climate change. Superstorm Sandy alone cost $65 billion. It cost more than 100 lives. More than 1,000 people were displaced. Those type of events will increasingly be replicated all across the country, not just in Florida and in the Gulf states. This occurred in the Northeast at the end of October. And I think that that type of reality may help change the terms of the debate. On the other hand, because it's clear that we as Americans, both in terms of the human cost and eventually in terms of the economic toll that these type of storms take on our economy and the disruption of day-to-day life, can no longer afford to absorb it.
So that's an interesting idea, which is the way that you overcome the big money. Because the whole point of that intro is that concerted wealth, that's real. I mean, there's real wealth that people are sitting on they don't want to give up.
That's right.
And they're in the fight on Capitol Hill. I'm sure you see it every day. So the question is, how is that overcome?
Right, and I think that part of the way that it's overcome is that as Americans increasingly become educated about the fact that their well-being, their lifestyle, their livelihood will increasingly be put at risk as a result of our failure to deal with the realities of climate change. And if we don't move to more sustainable, cleaner forms of energy use, solar, wind, geothermal, that eventually the devastation that hit New York City, New York State, and New Jersey through Superstorm Sandy may become a reality that strikes them at some point, and hopefully that will collectively shake America into action and rise up to fight those very entrenched economic forces that also once existed in this country in the 1800s, as you've eloquently referred to.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries from New York City. It's always a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. All right, joining